Today's episode of Solve for Time, me and my co-founder Ethan Richter look at two networking strategies we believe will help cut down a lot of time and give you a lot of opportunities in 2022. All right, so in today's video, we are going to be talking about two networking strategies to use in 2022. I think these strategies, if you just focused on the two of them, would be all you need to grow your network in 2022. Without further ado, Ethan, where are we starting? What is strategy number one?
Well, I think strategy number one is probably one of the most important on here. We're going to be talking mostly about LinkedIn stuff for kind of our first piece, but really just cleaning up that profile and making sure that your LinkedIn is reflective as like a little mini resume, right? You can get that to where it's all clean and professional looking, to where it's got all your relevant information. So that way, if you're looking for jobs or things like that, you can link it and have basically a living resume, not have to be updating a Word document all the time. But it has a lot of opportunities too to connect with all sorts of folks, as we'll kind of dive into. But I think the first kind of little micro tip, if you will, is just to really make sure it's super polished. Make sure that you're coming off really professionally. You're looking for things like spelling errors, and that it's all stuff that just comes across well, right? This is your potentially first impression for someone who may want to hire you, or if someone finds you just kind of as they're searching or whatever, and maybe they work with you and you're going for a promotion or something like that. You want to make the best impression that you can. So I would say that's probably our best first tip there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you got to start with the presentation of the LinkedIn profile, because when you start outreach and engagement, that's going to be what people go to first and go, well, what's this person about? And they do a little like, oh, they work here, or oh, they work there. This is their title, skill. They can get a good picture as to what you're doing. And if you have it laid out in a way that best tells all your experiences currently and where you're trying to go, if your profile can tell that story, it's only going to benefit you, right? At the end of the day, it's only the more people that see it, that you're engaging with in the right industries, the better. And that's the next step, right? Connect with people in your industry or your desired industry rather, and then connect with people that have the job title you want. Even if they're not, hiring at their company, you'll be amazed, how much insight and like modern tips you can learn just by following someone or asking someone like, hey, are you hiring? No, but love that you're interested. This is how I broke in my first time and got my first job. Or surprisingly, hey, we are hiring. I'll refer you. A lot of people, a lot of companies are incentivized to bring you aboard and or to bring in more employees and give them a referral bonus. So you'd be surprised how many people would just be open, like, hey, you're interested? Sweet. There's a $2,000 referral bonus. I will refer you.
Throw my name on it. Yeah. No, exactly.
Sweet. Like, you're interested, you took, half the battle is reaching out for most people, and they understand if you're going to send that message and be vulnerable for a second, you probably can do it. So that's the next step once your profile is the way you want it to be. From there, though, Ethan, where should people go after they've set the profile and the connections are out there? What's their next step?
I think this is actually a really good kind of bridge almost between the first two, but just kind of reaching out directly to recruiters and things like that, right? So you've got everything really kind of polished up. You've sent out those connections with that polished up profile to kind of people in that field and stuff, and now you're kind of building credibility, if you will, right? People are going to see, maybe you don't have a whole lot of sales experience yourself. You're kind of trying to break into the field, right? But you're connecting and networking with all the right people, and I think when you start surrounding yourself with that, that's where a lot of those opportunities and credibilities can come from. So you start building that, and then find a position that says, we'll say Comcast, just a random example, right? And you want to go and do their sales stuff. Well, you find someone who works as a recruiter for Comcast during your outreach, and you connect with them, and you add a personalized message that says something like, hey, I'd be really interested in learning more about what it takes. I've been interested in breaking into the sales realm. I'm going to deliver something really professionally. They're going to see that. They're going to take a look at your profile and click on it and say, who is this guy? When they see everything's really collected and neat and tidy, and that you're presenting well and professional, I think that's a really good opportunity to at least get your foot in the door. At least get the conversation going. And it doesn't work every time, of course, but if you're going to be reaching out to people in the company that are going to help you, it's going to be the recruiters, right? You know, they're going to get bonuses and things like that. You know, they're incentivized to put you in these roles. If ever there was someone that was going to advocate for putting you in the company, it's going to be, you know, someone like that or in that position, a recruiter of some sort. So I think that's probably a good kind of tie into those first two steps, and kind of a good explanation as to why you do that setup first too, right? We're doing this in a very intentional way to make sure that we're getting the best impact. You don't want to reach out and try and build that network or reach out to those recruiters when you've got 3 connections and, you know, no resume or work experience on any of your stuff, and, you know, you've written like a sentence and that's it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. They can kind of tell, you know, how much effort you're going to put into your LinkedIn resume. LinkedIn profile is probably how much effort you're going to put into a job, because that's what LinkedIn is a job search place. So they tell you to treat the job search like it's a job, and that's part of it, right? So keep that in mind. And then the last point, I guess, that we want to touch on is just, you've established all that, you engage with companies, like you see a job that comes up that at a target company and target role, you reach out to the recruiter, man, you got all that set up, you casually are always, you know, adding people that look interesting in the industry. Only other thing to keep in mind is to stay professional. It's not Facebook. Engage often, but stay professional, keep it focused to the job. That's also the beauty of LinkedIn. I think why it's so powerful is a majority of the community does focus on it. There is, you know, some little posts here and there that are like, not the place or time, but they don't gain that much traction. A lot of people are really active and focused on growing this community in a business mindset. And so you do see the ones that have more impactful value for like business concept and strategy and just recruiting in general, of course. You see those blow up much more. And that does help you too, right? I've seen so many people that post their story about how they were fired or what thing they overcame. And then you'll look down, 20,000 likes, 1,300 comments, and it's all recruiters that are like high up, founders of recruiting agencies that have all these jobs, like, hey, no, I'll hire you, let's set a meeting. So, you know, and that's one post that probably took them like 10 minutes. So that, you know, the more quality you focus out there, the more you're gonna, like, the more energy you put into LinkedIn, the more you're gonna get out of it. But before we go to strategy 2, Ethan, is there anything you wanted to add?
I guess just kind of to your note, you know, just remember that it's not the same kind of people or same kind of network as something like Facebook, right? You know, you're not going to throw pictures of your dog on there or share nothing but memes or anything like that. You know, just really making sure you've done all this hard work to build up kind of that reputation for, you know, when people look you up, these recruiters and stuff, and you've gotten that first impression really strong. Don't, you know, spoil that with all this kind of garbage content, right? And, you know, kind of like you said, just making sure that you're being active and you're contributing something, as far as, you don't have to be making posts, but if you see something that, you know, wow, I really kind of like the way they put that or whatever, just throw on a like, and you'll realize that, you know, all of a sudden maybe that person, because they only have a few connections, you know, a connection of a connection says, hey, let's connect here, you know, or because you've been targeting it right, and that's someone you sent a message to a while ago, they get back to you, right? I've actually even booked meetings and things like that through commenting on people's posts after I've sent them several messages and had them not reply, and all of a sudden I'm a familiar face because I've been, you know, talking to them basically. So just, you know, make sure to keep it calm and professional, and you know, you'll do well if you do everything else too.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, a good thing to just keep in mind mindset wise when you're doing all this outreach is that networking can be a benefit to the other person too. So when you reach out, don't feel like you're necessarily only taking from them. Understand that it's a two-way thing, like you're taking their time up, but that you want to give them something too. So don't feel bad about asking, but also don't feel bad about rejection is what I'm saying. So, you know, they're both great. The ask is great. It shows that you appreciate whatever they've done and you'd like to connect with them and learn more about it. But understand that, you know, it's a double-edged time thing, and they could be going on a completely different life trajectory moment right now that you're just trying to build your network in the world. So just keep that in mind too before you get discouraged on the first few messages. But let's
I
go
mean, we've
to
been
number
projecting
two.
plenty of times, right?
Yeah, but let's go to strategy number 2, and that's podcasting. So we've done some podcast content. We started doing the podcast content mainly with our career coaching early last year before we even started recruiting for other businesses. And we were doing it just ourselves, but the reason why it's a networking strategy and what we've realized is so powerful is bringing on guests and connecting with other people that are building podcasts is huge. So you have other thought leaders in the space that are just, already have this audience that you can tap into simply by, a message and saying, hey, I'll give you my time. And you can tap into a whole audience that's, deliberately thinking in a certain way when they go, reach this person. So, obviously you want to be selective on who you reach out to, but just the premise of the podcast can be so powerful. Ethan, did you have any other notes to add as to why podcasting could help you with networking and not just, be a celebrity?
Yeah, I mean, as much as everyone wants to be a celebrity, I think that you're completely right. I think that a lot of folks focus on kind of the audience as far as who's listening to the podcast, right? But if you're, reaching out to all these other people who are interested in similar things or, doing similar podcasts or even just willing to kind of do this collaborative content, all of a sudden you end up in this space where you're having a conversation about, where your interests overlap. And that can turn into some real working relationships where you get to know this person on, a level that's closer to a friend than a stranger you just had on for the show. And, as much as we're the ones saying, surround yourself with all these people and, kind of build that network around yourself, a place like LinkedIn, we're not the only ones doing that, right? So are the folks that are doing all this. And so when you become, good friends with them, and you say sometimes you're having a chat through, discussing some content you're going to make together, you say, hey, I've been thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. What do you think? And they say, oh, I have a buddy who's, perfect guy for you to talk to, right? Or I have another friend who'd be great to join, on the podcast to talk about that very subject or something like that, right? And all of a sudden, you get their network too, and it kind of continues to snowball like that, right? So I guess just making sure that you're focusing on that, and obviously there is a benefit too to all the different listeners and stuff like that. But I think the real value can be collaborating, particularly with some of those small business owners that are passionate about things,
Yeah, and I think and I think a good way to sum it up why I think it's like a double-edged sword and so powerful is the fact that you can snowball your networking with connecting with other big thought leaders that already have the audiences that you can target, reaching out to the podcasts that are relevant to your industry. Super powerful by itself, but it's also a snowball in creating content. You're able to create the longest form piece of content, and usually you can do a podcast on each side, so you can guest appear and then they can guest on your side, so you're going to two audiences first of all, and then secondly it's the longest form piece of content, so you can repurpose TikTok, YouTube short, Instagram, LinkedIn posts to redirect it to your YouTube and create so many different forms on just that one recording session. So if you look at it that way, you could snowball networking and content creation just by having a podcast.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of on the back end of that point too, is you're going to be learning kind of the whole time you're doing this, right? You might be, starting out doing the podcast, not have a lot of experience, or start out doing the content creation, not have a lot of experience. And if you're able to kind of lean on these other folks, you can talk to them about, hey, how do I chop up this long form content? Utilize networking into that, or maybe they are able to kind of give you some ideas you didn't have before. Hey, what if you chop this up into a real quick, 15-second clip and throw it on TikTok, right? And maybe that never crossed your mind because you're just much more on, other social media networks. It's little things like that I think, to your point, really kind of creates the value there for podcasts and, the networking aspect of it.
Yeah, 100%. So I think we covered what we wanted to cover today, Ethan. Leverage LinkedIn, start a podcast. Basically all you need, or at least two strategies. There's plenty of other ways to go about it. You can do live events and stuff like that. But I think these two strategies in specific are going to be really powerful. And if you just focus on those two for a whole year, it'd be amazing what you could show for it, no matter what your interests are in the world. If you just sent consistent messages every month for connections and maybe just one podcast episode a month, it would be really incredible to see, you know, what one person could show from just that effort alone. But guys, thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Have a good one.